it's time for us to move on to our next guest, who was extremely impactful in so many different ways on the program. They came on to really talk to us about getting proper intersex counseling. Our good friend, Dr. Cynthia Jackson Mulit, PhD, talked to us about why it's important to get good counseling for people. Let's take a look at her clip.
So I'm a counselor educator, but counseling is my field. I'm an educator of counselors, but there's a difference between counselors and social workers and psychologists and psychiatrists. Those are all mental health professionals. And we have our own major association, like, for example, the American Psychiatric Association, the American Counseling Association, and our parent organization polices us and sets ethic guides and trains, participates in ongoing yearly training. So how I think about the differences between those tracks is where we think the problem is. So a psychiatrist is going to look at a client and think that the problem is in their body, their chemical makeup. A psychologist is going to think that the problem is in the individual's mind. And a counselor might expand, and we tend to think of people as basically well, and so we might be looking into the community and say, well, maybe there are community reasons why a person is depressed. So we don't tend to, as a field, and this is general, counselors tend to be not oriented towards seeing human beings as disordered as a first line of explanation of where the problems are, but rather look at the culture and say, what might be stressing that individual as a result of the culture that they're in, and how can we facilitate, a healthy or improved interaction in the environment that they're in.
Totally important information and perspectives on how to look at mental wellness.
Yes, absolutely. And to try and do it. Can we bring Cynthia in?
Yes, I would love to do that. Hello.
Hi,
Dr.
how are you? You can't see, but I want you to see my headband.
Oh, I love it. The Intersex headband.
Let's feature that. Let's see it. Let's see it again.
All right, here we go.
That is awesome. I almost said a curse word. It's so awesome. So I want to jump right in if we can, because Cynthia, I want you to explain to me how damaging it is for intersex people that are either on Intersex Island or just came off of Intersex Island, how damaging it is to their mental health to not know that there's another person like them on the planet, and the isolation. How damaging is that to somebody?
That's a great question. And actually that was one of in my recent dissertation on intersex experiences, the theme that popped out of so many pages was the importance of social support, that an intersex individual will initially maybe not know that there's something other than the binary only framework, and then they start to experience discrepancies in their bodies that don't fit the idea that they're actually only male or only female. And that confusing era can all of a sudden become an affirming and opening experience when they finally realize that there's somebody else like them. And then they can go out for, to questions and network. And this is a way, this program is a way that people can have that level of connection with like others that doesn't depend upon a once a year conference. It's available when people can, when they start to search their own intersex variation and they're Googling and they come across an interview at a video with somebody who's like them. It's a rare enough subject that it's not the easiest thing to just sort of go down to the neighborhood, the support, between intersex people is vital for positive self-identity, particularly because counselors, my profession, we're not yet educated. We're still behind in terms of, say, just even comparing our scholarship with other sexual minorities. If I wanted to go, as a counselor and have training in working with bisexuals or working with, a gay population, I have quantities of textbooks available to me, but there's nothing like that yet readily. Sort of the textbook form that counselors look at, there are biographies and so forth. So I'm not saying that there isn't scholarship. Please don't hear that. But for the counseling field is yet behind in terms of its ability to serve the intersex community. So this kind of program, is as Maria said, provides life-saving support for people who are learning that they in fact exist, and they need to reach out to other people. So this is such an important community function.
So what was your reaction when you learned that the YouTube channel had been canceled?
Sad. There are not enough resources like this and to cancel something that is informative and insightful and based upon real people's stories, not sort of hearsay from somebody who doesn't really know. These are real stories, people who have worked a very long time in the field or have a lot of experience with their own intersex variation. So to lose a precious source of affirming information, and that can be a way that an intersex individual can develop a positive self-identity is a tragedy. But it's more than that. It's actually participating in the damage itself. So it's one thing to just sort of say, oh, well, we're denying access. So that's sort of a passive, it's just denying an access. But actually, the trauma that intersex people experience compared to other sexual minorities is unique. It is the trauma of non-existence. So we know as counselors that the different sexual minority tracks, say bisexual, gay, they're told that they exist. The idea is, yes, you exist, but you're inferior. Intersex people are denied existence. They have to sort of wake up somehow to the fact that they even exist. So when you take a program like this that wipes out visibility, you're not just taking away a resource, you're actually participating in the very traumatization of a people. So it's sad, it's horrifying to me to know that intersex people like yourselves are being once again re-traumatized and told you don't exist, which you do. You do. And oh, by the way, I was just sort of thinking about this, the preposterous place we find ourselves in. I mean, is this even real? That there can be an issue about whether intersex people exist? Just for fun today, just for a task today I Googled the National Library of Medicine. So we're talking researchers, and using a synonym for intersex, between 500, depending upon the search term I use, between 500 and 800 references came up. I also did the same for the National Organization of Rare Diseases, using synonyms for intersex, 100 to 200 returns. So clearly scientists, social scientists and actual scientists, doctors, we know intersex exists. So the fact that this is even happening is, it's sad. It's horrifying because it re-traumatizes, but it's also, preposterous. It's preposterous. Of course, of course, intersex people exist. Exactly. It's shocking to me that people don't know that.
So why does Susan Wojcicki and YouTube, why does she need to audit this decision to have our channel removed?
Because the very act of withdrawing this program is re-traumatizing a people.
Yeah.
People, this is the trauma of intersex people, the umbrella trauma. You don't exist. And then in that message, then comes the bodily and hormonal efforts that are put onto intersex people to try to fix them. So, quote unquote, fix and to conform, into this idea of male or female only. Well, it doesn't work because intersex bodies are intersex bodies, and so the discrepancies surface. So by participating in the message of non-existence to intersex people, this is this core trauma. And so I don't think YouTube wants to be associated with perpetuating the core trauma of an entire group of people. And we're not just talking about one group. Intersex is an umbrella term for over 40 variations. And when you talk about, all of the different kinds of variations, this is a group of people that are being traumatized, not just, a single population. So, the massive amount of damage that can be done with wiping a program like this off the air. I just don't think that YouTube wants to have that rap. I hope I'm not naive, but I think if they really understand that they're re-traumatizing a people with the very way that they're most traumatized, that maybe they would stop and think. It's like I heard Kimberly Zieselman make a point, former president of Interact, made the point of, when they're doing these surgeries, I don't think that they're telling the parents that the United Nations considers these surgeries a form of torture. It's like you hear that and it just sort of strikes you. Yes, I bet that in the informed consent process, that's not being said. Well, I kind of hope that if YouTube really understood that intersex people are traumatized by the message of non-existence, which is far worse than my view, far worse than you exist, but you're inferior. That's a hard challenge to overcome anyway. But you don't even exist is basically eugenics by definition. Only it's not just definition, it's eugenics then by implementation of surgical and hormonal treatments to try to do erasure. So this entire approach of erasing a program is connected to erasure of a people. And I hope that if YouTube hears it put in those terms, that they would want to change the policy or, really revisit how they're portraying themselves in the world.
I could not have said it better. That was absolutely brilliant.
Yes, I want to thank you because you helped me understand, and even this show is educational and helpful because you helped me understand why I'm feeling like I am right now, why I feel that I've been attacked, and why I feel like I'm discriminated against, and why I'm an emotional basket case, in case anybody hasn't noticed.
Sorry.
And you explained it so well, and I can't appreciate that enough because it gave me comfort to hear you say what you just said.
I'm so glad because you do so much, and I want to put that back and say that the activists that were so generous with their time and let me as a counselor hear their stories, which is similar to what's happening here. You're letting the world hear your stories. By you activists having the courage to share your stories, I was able to, as a counselor, listen to the words and compare them with the words that I heard of trauma in other contexts. And what stood out in the pages were words like annihilation, extermination, eugenics. I haven't read interviews before about sexual minority damage that used those kinds of terms: eugenics, annihilation, extermination, total erasure. So Jess, if you weren't doing what you're doing, Vash, if you weren't producing this, there wouldn't be an ability for counselors like myself to begin to mirror back what from my training I'm hearing you say. I'm hearing you all say you are being erased, you are being exterminated. So I can use my training, but it's because of your courage. So if YouTube wipes off platforms that give activists an ability to have a voice, then counselors like myself don't have the same forum to be able to come up and say, wait a minute, this is what I'm hearing. You got to stop this. This is a human rights violation, big time. Big time. I stand with the United Nations. This is torture. So thank you. thank you all for, your courage at doing what you do.
Thank
And
you so much.
I'm glad I can help.
Well, is there any organization that you know of that you can give us a name for that we can put into the chat for anybody who might be feeling isolated or saddened or by this decision?
Interestingly enough, was it this week? There's a new number for National Suicide Hotline, but I want to say, qualify if you ever make a call to the national organizations. Qualify the person that you're talking to as LGBTQI affirming first. But look up Trevor Project. That's another source. There are. I wish that I could point you to an intersex specific crisis hotline, but we're not there yet. But again, 988 is the new national suicide hotline.
Fantastic. I did see that, and I'm so happy that we were able to share that, because what we do here at the original Intersect Connect Live is we educate, we inform, and we protect. So thank you so much, Dr. Mulit, for being a part of this. We really appreciate you, and we hope to have you back on the show.
Dr. Mulit, thank you very, very much. I can't tell you how much, A, you've helped me out today, and B, how much I appreciate you being on the show.
Take care.
Good night.
Bye-bye all.
Wow.
So, Bosh, that was quite powerful and emotional for me, so I'm going to just keep talking until I don't turn into a crying ball of mush right now.